Not a near miss, not a half scratch. It was a total destruction on Haifa's natural gas. Not shrapnel from a fragmented warhead, not a failed mission that rattled windows. A precision strike on one of the most heavily defended energy nodes in the eastern Mediterranean. The weapon that did it is called the Fattah-2. 6 months ago, most Western defense analysts said it did not exist. Iron Dome was online. David's Sling was online. Arrow 3 was online. American Aegis destroyers were stationed offshore. Every layer of the most expensive integrated air defense architecture outside of mainland Europe fired at this missile. None of them stopped it. And here is what makes this worse. This strike happened 72 hours after Israeli jets, supported by American tankers, hit Iran's South Pars gas field. And it's the single largest natural gas reserve on the planet. 8% of the world's total proven supply. Iran warned the world. Nobody listened. Now Haifa is burning. And the weapon they used to do it has a nickname that is not propaganda. Defense analysts are calling it the dancing missile. And in the next 19 minutes, you're going to understand exactly why that name exists, why every interceptor in Israel's arsenal missed, why this strike just triggered emergency sessions in Washington, Beijing, and Moscow simultaneously, and why the most dangerous part of this story is not the missile at all. It is how Iran knew exactly where to aim it. Every air defense system on Earth operates on one principle. Predict where the incoming threat will be in the future. Put an interceptor at that point. That is it. Track, calculate, and be intercept. For 70 years, that math worked because ballistic missiles follow predictable arcs. The Fattah-2 broke that math. The original Fattah-1 was already a problem. A medium-range ballistic missile with a hypersonic glide vehicle. It launched on a ballistic trajectory, separated its warhead at the edge of space, then re-entered the atmosphere on a depressed skipping path at speeds exceeding Mach 13. That created a gap, too low for Arrow 3's optimal engagement envelope, too fast and too high for David's Sling. The Fattah-2 added something that changed everything. Its warhead does not just glide, it maneuvers, aggressively, unpredictably. Iranian engineers described it as a quasi-random lateral oscillation pattern. As the warhead descends at Mach 13 to Mach 15, it shifts laterally, left, right, up, down, not in a predictable wave, but in a pattern that incorporates randomized inputs. Western tracking analysts watched the data and started calling it the dance. But here's the critical part. The warhead carries an infrared terminal seeker that activates in the final phase of flight. The dance is not random flailing. It is calculated evasion. The warhead jinks to avoid interceptors while simultaneously recalculating its path to the target. It dodges and corrects, every half second. Think about what the defender faces. You are tracking an object moving at 4.5 kilometers per second. You are trying to predict where it will be in 6 seconds. Every half second, it changes direction in a way your algorithm did not anticipate. Your interceptor, launched based on your best prediction 3 seconds ago, is heading toward a point in space where the target no longer exists. Your interceptor hits empty air. You fire another, same result, and another, same result. The warhead dances through your kill chain, and while it dances, its seeker stays locked on the target. Iran did not test this in a desert. They fired it at Haifa, at a gas facility surrounded by the most layered air defense network in the Middle East. And it went through like that network was not there. The question tearing through Israel's defense establishment right now is not just how the missile penetrated. It is why every single interceptor failed to come close. And the answer is pure physics. Let me walk through the math. This is not opinion. This is physics. The Fattah-2's terminal velocity is approximately Mach 13, 4.4 kilometers per second. The critical terminal phase, where the warhead is actively maneuvering and locked on target, lasts approximately 40 to 55 seconds. Here is what happens inside those seconds from the defender's side. Step 1. Detection. Israel's Green Pine radar detects the incoming object. But the Fattah-2's warhead has a reduced radar cross-section, a sharpened, low observable profile. Instead of detection at 500 kilometers, reliable tracking begins closer to 250 to 300 kilometers. At Mach 13, that gives you 60 to 70 seconds. That is your entire budget. Step 2. Track stabilization. The radar needs a confirmed trajectory, not a blip, but enough data points to calculate an intercept solution. For a non-maneuvering target, this takes 8 to 12 seconds. But the Fattah-2 is maneuvering. Every lateral shift resets the algorithm's confidence. Your track stabilization stretches to 15 to 25 seconds. You just burned a third of your time. Step 3. Intercept solution, launch authorization, fire. Best case, 12 to 18 seconds. Step 4. Interceptor flight time to engagement altitude, another 15 to 25 seconds. Add it up, 42 to 68 seconds needed, on a timeline of 60 to 70 seconds total. The margin is not thin. In some scenarios, it is negative. The interceptor cannot physically arrive in time. But even when the timing works, even when every system performs at peak specification, the interceptor still has to hit the target. Arrow 3 uses hit-to-kill technology. No explosion, no shrapnel cloud. It must physically collide with the warhead. That requires predicting the target's exact position at the moment of intercept, down to centimeters. Against a warhead executing randomized lateral maneuvers at Mach 13, that is like trying to thread a needle on a sewing machine while both the needle and the thread are moving in opposite directions at the speed of a bullet. Imagine you are a goalkeeper. Your entire career, every striker has kicked the ball in a straight line. Your training, your reflexes, your positioning, all optimized for straight shots. Now someone kicks a ball that curves left, then right, then drops, then rises, while accelerating to 3 times the fastest shot you have ever seen. You are not a bad goalkeeper. The ball is not playing the same sport anymore. Reports indicate between 8 and 12 interceptors were fired across multiple defense layers. Everyone missed. Not because the operators failed, because the systems were built to solve a different equation, and the Fattah-2 presented one that has no solution in the current architecture. And after all that maneuvering, the infrared seeker reacquired the gas facility in the final 8 seconds and guided the warhead directly into the processing infrastructure. Unpredictable evasion followed by surgical precision. That combination is what broke the paradigm. And the target it hit was not chosen randomly. South Pars is not just a gas field, it is Iran's economic spine. Located in the Persian Gulf, shared with Qatar's North Field, it holds approximately 51 trillion cubic meters of natural gas and 50 billion barrels of condensate. 8% of the world's proven natural gas reserves in one geological formation. Israel, according to multiple intelligence assessments and satellite imagery, struck it. IF-35. I-stealth fighters supported by American KC-46 tankers. The flight path crossed Jordanian and Saudi airspace, which tells you about the diplomatic architecture that was quietly built to enable this operation. The strikes targeted processing units, compression stations, and pipeline junctions at South Pars's western edge. Iran confirmed damage, confirmed casualties among facility workers, then said 6 words: the response will match the crime. 72 hours later, Haifa. And this is where the strategic calculus becomes frightening. Iran did not hit a military base, did not hit an airfield, did not hit a command center. Iran hit gas infrastructure. Mirror targeting. You hit my gas, I hit your gas. You attack the energy spine of my nation, I attack yours. And I do it with a weapon you cannot stop. The Haifa target was the natural gas receiving terminal and processing infrastructure through which a significant portion of Israel's domestically consumed gas flows from the offshore Leviathan and Tamar fields. Israel transitioned aggressively to natural gas over the past decade. Leviathan, online since 2019, was supposed to guarantee energy independence. Natural gas now generates approximately 70% of Israel's electricity. It feeds the desalination plants that provide much of the country's fresh water. It powers the industrial base. A sustained disruption to Haifa's gas node does not just darken homes. It threatens electricity generation, water production, and industrial output simultaneously. For a country conducting military operations on multiple fronts, that is not an inconvenience. It is a strategic crisis. And here is what is making energy analysts in London and Singapore nervous. If this escalation continues, deeper strikes on energy infrastructure in both directions. The implications go global. South Pars feeds gas to Turkey, which feeds Europe. Leviathan feeds gas to Egypt, which feeds global LNG markets. A sustained energy war between Iran and Israel sends natural gas prices spiking across continents and creates exactly the kind of energy shock central banks have feared since the Ukraine war. This is not a bilateral conflict anymore. The moment both sides started targeting each other's energy arteries, it became a global economic event. But the weapon itself created an entirely separate shockwave, one reverberating right now through the Pentagon, the Chinese Central Military Commission, and Russia's General Staff. Within 6 hours of the strike confirmation, 3 things happened in 3 capitals simultaneously. In Washington, the Pentagon convened an emergency session of the Missile Defense Agency's senior leadership. The United States has spent approximately $350 billion over 4 decades building a layered missile defense architecture, Patriot, THAAD, Aegis, predicated on the assumption that threats follow predictable trajectories. The Fattah-2 just proved in live combat that a maneuvering hypersonic glide vehicle defeats that architecture, and American systems share the same fundamental physics limitations as the Israeli ones. This has immediate implications. Roughly 40,000 American troops are deployed in the Gulf region. Patriot batteries sit in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait. Aegis destroyers patrol the Persian Gulf and Eastern Mediterranean. If Iran can put a Fattah-2 through Israel's defenses, it can reach Al Udeid Air Base, 5th Fleet Headquarters in Bahrain, or Camp Arifjan in Kuwait. The geography is actually worse for the Americans. Shorter flight times from Iranian launch sites mean even less reaction time. Pentagon planners now face a question they have spent careers avoiding. What if the missile defense umbrella that justifies America's entire forward-basing strategy is no longer reliable? In Beijing, the response was different in tone, identical in urgency. China's PLA rocket force has been developing its own hypersonic glide vehicles, the DF-17, the DF-27, for over a decade, but they have never been tested in combat against a peer-level air defense network. Iran just did that testing for them, for free. Chinese military researchers published a preliminary assessment within 48 hours, remarkably fast, indicating pre-prepared analytical frameworks waiting for real-world data. The conclusion? The Fattah-2's terminal maneuvering validated theoretical models Chinese engineers developed since 2018. The target Beijing cares about is not Haifa. It is Guam, Kadena Air Base in Okinawa, American carrier strike groups in a Taiwan contingency. If a maneuvering hypersonic glide vehicle defeats Arrow 3 and David's Sling, systems sharing technological DNA with Aegis and THAAD, the entire American defensive perimeter in the Western Pacific rests on the same vulnerable foundation. In Moscow, the Fattah-2 provided indirect validation for Russia's own hypersonic arsenal. Kinzhal, Avangard, Zircon. If Iran can produce a system that defeats Western-grade defenses, Russian systems with larger budgets and longer development timelines are almost certainly as capable, or more so. Every NATO defense minister who reassured their parliament that Patriot can handle the Russian hypersonic threat just had that assurance cracked. The Haifa strike did not just damage a gas facility. It told every military alliance on Earth that the era of defensive certainty is over. But as these shockwaves spread, a much darker question was tearing through the Israeli security establishment. One that has nothing to do with missile physics and everything to do with something far more dangerous. The Fattah-2 hitting Haifa is terrifying as a technical achievement. But the targeting precision, the warhead striking a specific processing node within a complex spanning several square kilometers, implies something arguably more dangerous than the missile itself. Iran had the exact coordinates. There are 4 ways Iran could have obtained that data. Every single one represents a catastrophic failure. 1. Iranian reconnaissance satellites. The Noor series provides medium-resolution imagery sufficient for identifying large complexes. But pinpointing a specific processing node typically requires higher resolution than Iran's known constellation provides, unless they have upgraded capabilities not publicly disclosed. 2. Commercial satellite imagery. This is the uncomfortable modern reality. Sub-meter resolution imagery from Maxar, Planet Labs, or Airbus is available to essentially anyone. The Haifa gas terminal layout is visible on Google Earth. Processing nodes, pipeline routing, commercially available. 3. Human intelligence. A source with access to facility layouts or operational schedules. Israel's Shin Bet is now conducting the largest counterintelligence sweep related to energy sector security in the country's history. 4, and this is generating the most anxiety, signals intelligence. The possibility that Iran, potentially with Chinese or Russian technical assistance, intercepted digital communications related to the facility's operations, maintenance schedules, operational data flowing between the gas terminal and the National Energy Management Center. If those channels are compromised, the problem extends far beyond one terminal. Every piece of critical infrastructure in Israel that communicates digitally, power plants, water systems, military networks, is potentially exposed. The pattern is what frightens Israeli counterintelligence most. This is not the first strike demonstrating precision targeting of specific subsystems within critical infrastructure. That pattern does not emerge from guesswork. It emerges from detailed, sustained intelligence collection. Someone, or something, is feeding Iran targeting data, and Israel does not know who, what, or how. The Fattah-2 dancing through air defenses is a technical problem, solvable eventually with enough money and engineering. An intelligence breach providing real-time targeting data on critical infrastructure is an existential problem. You cannot build a defense against an adversary who already knows exactly where to aim. Let me land this where it needs to land. First, Israel's energy infrastructure, the backbone of its electricity, water, and industrial economy, is now targetable and hittable by a weapon it cannot currently intercept. Every onshore pipeline junction, compression station, and processing node is a viable Fattah-2 target. Iran has demonstrated both capability and willingness. Second, the escalation cycle Israel initiated by striking South Pars created a precedent that cannot be walked back. Energy for energy, gas for gas, and the asymmetry favors Iran. Israel has a concentrated, geographically compact energy network. Iran's South Pars is vast, distributed, and backed by redundant supply lines. In a sustained energy exchange, that math does not work in Israel's favor. Third, Netanyahu's domestic position just shifted. The narrative sold to the Israeli public, that offensive action would degrade Iranian capabilities and make Israel safer, was obliterated in a single impact. Israeli families watching their gas infrastructure burn are asking a question no politician can safely answer. If billion-dollar defense systems cannot stop their missiles, what did we accomplish by provoking them? Families of reservists deployed in Gaza and along the northern border are asking something harder. If the government cannot protect the gas that powers our homes, how will it protect the bases where our children are sleeping? Fourth, the expansion dilemma. Escalate further, strike deeper into Iran, and risk a larger retaliatory barrage against power plants, to desalination facilities, or military command centers. Or absorb the hit and accept that Iran has established a credible deterrent that limits Israel's freedom of action. Neither option is acceptable. Both are on the table. Fifth, the foundational assumption underneath Western military power projection, that advanced air defense can reliably neutralize missile threats, just took a direct hit of its own. That assumption underwrites American forward basing. It underwrites NATO's eastern flank. It underwrites the defense of Taiwan. The Fattah-2 punched a hole in it. Not in a simulation. In live combat against real interceptors in real time. And the hardest truth, the one no defense official in Washington or Tel Aviv will say publicly, but every one of them is thinking, is this: Iran still has an unknown number of Fattah-2 missiles in its arsenal. The production lines are running. The guidance systems are proven. The targeting data continues to flow. The next one could fly tomorrow. And right now, today, no one on Earth has a reliable way to stop it. If this gave you a clearer understanding of what just changed, not just in this conflict, but in the global balance of power you are living inside right now, share this with someone who is still getting their information from 30-second clips that explain nothing. Subscribe to this channel, because the next phase of this escalation is coming, and when it does, you are going to want the full picture. The dancing missile proved it can reach the target. The only question left is how many more times it flies before someone finds a way to stop the music.